Culture, for me, opened the door to a fantastic world. In one of the trips I took, my cultural knowledge allowed me to create a different friendship with an older girl. Let me tell you about my experience. During a train trip, I was sitting next to the above-mentioned girl, who was telling on the phone that she had met Simon Diano, an ancient deportee and survivor at school. When I heard that name, my heart skipped a bit, because it matters to know as much as possible about the deportation of the Jews. As soon as the girl ended the phone call, I started a conversation with her. I read so much on this subject and watched so many films that I could talk with her about that terrible period for a long time. The conversation went on for the whole trip. So, what happened in the end? We became good friends and we speak to each other frequently. Through culture, we can open up to others and establish meaningful relationships. Culture is a set of knowledge acquired through studying, reading, and experience, and develops us in a subjective and autonomous way, thus becoming the fundamental element of the personality. It is thought that the cost of culture is prohibitive, especially in these recent times of economic crisis, but in my opinion, it is not. Of course, buying books, attending school, taking trips, visiting theaters and museums has a cost, but is only a grain of sand compared to the opportunities that we missed by not doing so. As far as I'm concerned, as I told you, I had the opportunity and seized it immediately. Man without culture is not master of himself, but is forced to suffer the decisions of others, and is not master of his own. Unfortunately, living from day to day is very common among young people, and a lot of them think that studying, theaters, and museums are useless. Others even hide their interests for fear of their peers' opinions, i.e., not being accepted or being out of fashion. The disconcerting thing is that today some young people don't want to study, while not too distant past I did not have the possibility to do it. I look at it today as a missed opportunity. Italy still ranks low in Europe for the number of graduates, school dropout rate, and skill levels. This is the Istat States in the SDGs report for 2019, pointing out that 14.5% of 18 24 years old drop out of school with a middle school diploma at most. Therefore, schools should increase students' involvement with activities aimed at arousing their curiosity and stimulating learning, so as not to consider it as something boring. At school, we should do group work, and the teacher should be the director, who organizes it a scene and stimulates curiosity in order to arouse emotions and involve even the least motivated and curious pupils. Then the desire to know should be made engaging and entertaining. Why? Because if you don't have a good education, you can go anywhere. Education is freedom, life. It helps to overcome difficulties and solve problems. In the novel The Betrothed, Lucia's mother, Agnese, advises Renzo to get the help of the lawyer Carbogli, because, thanks to his education, he could solve the issue with Don Rodrigo. To us poor people, the skin seems more intergold, because you cannot get hold of the right hand, but sometimes a piece of good advice, a little talk with a man who has got learning. I know well enough what I will say. In his quote, Manzoni wanted to highlight that an educated man face problems to which they cannot find a solution, and they need the help of an educated person to deal with the solution. Culture is a primary common good, like water. Theaters, libraries, museums, and cinemas are like aqueducts. Even Lenin understood the importance of cinemas, and although at the time it was still silent, he foresaw its power. Thanks to film, it was possible to reach millions of people. Immediately after the October Revolution, in addition to taking care of the country's problems, he founded the first Soviet film organization, under the control of the People's Commissariat for Education. The task was to produce and spread educational works and the ideas of realism. So it had a propaganda purpose. How to avoid it? Through knowledge. With knowledge, you can understand whether the propaganda aimed and win in favor of everyone in public, influencing the collective psychology is right or not. If I hadn't read so much about the Holocaust, I might not have known the atrocities committed by Hitler. Opening cinemas and museums, and raising libraries, and preserving archives means working on the most precious thing each country has, its tradition. Culture, because of the counter pandemic, it is suffering a strong shock. Theaters and museums are closed. But what does it entail? It entails harmful consequences for culture. In order to prevent them, the Cultura Italia Association made an appeal to the Prime Minister and Minister of Cultural Heritage and Activities and Tourism. It asked to avoid the closure of theaters and museums, but unfortunately, this was not the case. Once this period is over, the state should help these places of culture to avoid their definitive closure. It is essential to invest in culture, even if it is expensive, by funding not only more and more public funds, but also private funds, that will allow to enhance and make accessible the temples of knowledge, a knowledge which may be easily understood by everyone. Images, like paintings and statues, manage and to portray the history or insight into the everyday life of the area in which they were made. How to invest in culture? The state should oblige most oil companies to fund culture with part of their profits, making culture tax-free for young people, so as to eliminate, at least in part, the problems related to social inequality. Why? Because culture defeats the social needs of individuals, and it is a redemption from poverty. Yes, it's true that the most precious treasure can be admired even through Google Arts and culture, and not necessarily in presence, but traveling allows to come into direct contact with different cultures and get to know them better. It allows people, all people, including those coming from other countries and carriers of other cultures, to visit it first and foremost. It is the main tool for fighting against racism and xenophobia, promoting facts of integration, and, at the same time, a bold denounced the different identities. The task of spreading culture falls not only to schools and institutions, but also to families. Today, parents are more and more inclined to give pocket money to their children in order for them to satisfy superfluous needs, while, on the contrary, they should allocate it to the education of their children, stimulating their desire to know. How? By taking short trips. As Aristotle said, the rules of education are bitter, but the fruit is wheat.